What's going on, everybody? It is that time of the week, Wednesday night. One of my favorite things to do. Take away the politics, not talk about anything that has to do with what's going on in the world, except for how we can make the world a better place. So this is episode number 24 of Changemakers. We have a very special guest. Super excited to have her on. We have got Kelly Chase from, that's right, Love is Blind. If you guys paid attention to that fun little Netflix show, Social Experiment, what do I call it? We've got a guest from there, and it's going to be my pleasure to interview her. I actually got to be on her show, and that podcast will be out, I'm sure, in a couple weeks or whatever have you. But this is going to be awesome because we are going to talk about how to essentially create inner love, empowerment, and be able to share it with other people and personal growth and all that good stuff. So before we get the show started, we're about 30 seconds out. I need you guys to hit the like button, hit the share button. Do us a favor. Don't worry. Nobody's going to be offended by this show. There's no politics being talked about. You're actually going to be able to share it, and people are going to say, thank you for enriching my life. So go ahead and put a comment in the comment box. Tell me where you guys are from and share it out. Hit the like button. Thanks, guys. And let's get the party started. That's right, everybody. It is time for Changemakers. Thank you guys for being here. This is a show all about people that are creating change in the world, in the community around them. As I always say, we've had amazing guests top to bottom, and every single person is creating change in their own way. They're all doing it differently. They're all doing it in a way that creates positivity. They share positivity, and a lot of it comes from within, and this is going to be a perfect example of that. So we have got a very special guest, which I will introduce in just a second. I do want to do some housekeeping, let you guys know what exactly is going on. Fun fact, finally, after a whole year, we finally redesigned the website. So if you would like to check that out, we've got some fun new designs. We got a little bit risque on some of them, not action over awareness, because that's kind of normal. But we have Awake, Not Woke. We've got America, We Can Agree to Disagree, Be the Change Original, and Be the Effing Change. That's right. We got real dicey on this one. So there's hats, there's t-shirts. You guys are going to like it. Make sure you check that out. I'm seeing comments come in the comment box. We got Nashville, New York, Make America Think Again from Maine. What's going on? Amy, hello from Indiana. Thank you guys for joining. And again, do me the favor, hit that share button. Also, all of our shows, including Make America Think Again, Changemakers, like the program that you are watching right now, Truth Will Set You Free from last night, which if you didn't watch, it was a fantastic, fun conversation with people from both sides of the political spectrum. You can find that on our podcast network. Hashtag BetheChange.com/podcast, and the shopping page is hashtag BetheChange.com/shop. Super easy. So if you want to check that out, just go right there and you will see that. And you'll see all of our previous episodes of everything you see. And this episode will be up in 2 days. What else we got for you guys? I think that's pretty much it. If you'd like to support our programming, as I always like to say, make sure that you just check out at the bottom. I love being a Patreon. So if you guys could be a Patreon and you get extra stuff, Motivational Mondays, and you're going to get a free ticket to Sunday on our Take Back America conference coming up in a couple weeks, May 22nd and May 23rd. Free to everybody on the 22nd, Patreon's only on the 23rd. All right, that was all we have got to say here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our special guest. I'm seeing the numbers go up, which is awesome. So continue to hit the like button, continue to hit the share button, and we are going to be introducing somebody that I have just started to really talk to in the last couple weeks. She is so much fun. Absolutely. Her backstory is incredibly interesting, and she is just full of bubbly energy and life, and you guys are going to really appreciate her. She is a business and mindset coach. You've seen her on reality TV if you've watched Love is Blind. She's from a small town, and she's on a mission to cultivate vulnerability and raw storytelling to inspire and motivate, empower women. And I'm going to let her do the rest of her introduction because she's got a great backstory. Ladies and gentlemen, from Love is Blind, Kelly Chase.
Hi.
What's going on, Kelly? So
Oh,
where are you actually from? I saw the Ville. I'm assuming is that.
oh yeah. It's a small town called Loganville, about an hour east of Atlanta.
I was thinking Louisville. I'm like, that's not exactly a small town, but okay.
Yeah, small town.
Well, it's awesome to have you on. Go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Yeah. So hi everyone. Thank you for that awesome introduction too. Yeah, long story short, prior to going on Love is Blind, I was a health coach. I worked 9 to 5. I worked a lot. I was the real true definition of a hustler. But with that being said, I found myself caught up in just like that go, do burnout energy, especially because not only was I working Monday through Friday a lot, on the weekends, I found myself really disconnecting from everything. What like I was going out partying, I was drinking. And then on the week, like on Sunday came around and I was like, oh my God, what did I just do with my life? Like I probably should have like gone grocery shopping. I should have like done my laundry. I should have cleaned my house. Like I remember my mom would come to visit me and she's like, Kelly, I worked a job, had a husband and raised 2 children, and my house better than yours always. Like, why can you not clean your house? You don't have anything to like, so I was just radically in burnout and I didn't really understand why, but honestly, my brain didn't even function that way. I just knew that I knew that I was very unfulfilled with life and I just kept seeking more, and I was caught up in like the success, you got to work hard to be really successful. So that's what I did. I literally worked multiple jobs since I was 22 years old. So 2017 came around the summer and I left my last 9 to 5 job, and just started going on this pursuit of happiness, more or less. I honestly knew I was changes if nothing changes. And, I started to completely just 360 my life, or 180. I don't know what you want to call it, but I started to change everything. Yeah, I just went in a completely different direction. So 2018, the first 10 months of 2018, I wasn't working my 9 to 5 anymore. I was coaching. So I was a health coach at the time. So I was coaching and fitness training and whatnot. And I was okay living paycheck to paycheck at that moment, because at least I was able to breathe and live and go for walks in the middle of the day if I wanted to. And I stopped going out on weekends. I completely, literally changed my life. Started listening to empowering podcasts, reading personal development books. I read more books in months of 2018 than I probably had in my entire life. Started to I was waking up early in the morning, doing a whole morning routine for myself, which is something I had never done, was pour into myself. Because like I said, I was working all the time, or I was completely disconnecting from myself on the weekends. So, and then we started filming Love is Blind in October of 2018. And it was everything kind of went out the window after the show. My brain felt like mush. I was like, holy crap, I need to get my life back together. I have no clients because I've been, MIA for 7 weeks. And that was the first time I actually invested in a mindset coach myself, a business and mindset coach. And she was like a therapist for me. She literally took me down this avenue of why I was so disconnected from myself for so many years. And a lot of stems, again, long story short, but a lot stems, there was some sexual trauma that happened in college. And that's why I was showing up, behaving the way that I was for 10, 15 years. And also, what were you going to say?
Go ahead. I was just saying, what was the before you got to the mindset coach after Love is Blind? We'll talk about that. It sounds like you made a big shift to start 2018. What was the catalyst in your own life that created that reason for the shift?
Yeah. I honestly, I knew, so I had been, like I said, health coaching and fitness training, and I was doing fitness training for an app. It was Active, if anyone's familiar with that. And I was receiving messages from the members, you're changing my life. Your words are so empowering. And I remember sitting in my 9 to 5 office one day, looking out the window and receiving messages just randomly through Facebook or whatever. And I'm like, this 9 to 5 does not give me that. I feel so like, wow, to be so humbled and so like they were giving me purpose. And yeah, it was like purpose. They were giving me purpose. And I'm like, what am I doing here? So yeah, I just kind of like took the leap of faith. I was like, I have to go. Like, again, I was okay just living paycheck to paycheck. I really didn't care at that point because I just knew something had to change. I recognized too, I had gotten myself into like a relationship situation where the guy didn't want to be with me. And I'm like, why? Like, oh, you only want to be with me at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night? Okay. You know, so, and I had a lot of that. I mean, not a lot, but you know, it was like a very, similar experience for a while. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm a good person. I'm I'm a freaking awesome girl. Like, why do these guys not want to be in a relationship with me? So that's why I literally had to change everything changed for me. And, you know, that's what I was going to say. Like on the show, just like behind the scenes, little tidbit here. If you did watch, Kenny and I had a conversation around like having sex and everything. And the reason why we were the only couple that didn't become too intimate on the show was because I had promised myself earlier that year, going through my whole personal development journey, that I was not going to be intimate with any guy that I met until after 3 months. And Kenny just happened to be like that next guy. So
really crappy roll the dice for him on that one, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've been, you and I have been talking. I started to watch the show again because I actually, and this is, I do want to talk about it. It was fascinating to see a show where people have to get to know each other. And you and I mentioned, I was like, what I'm realizing when I look at current couples, they're a higher percentage. 2 of the, I guess, 6 couples on the show who met behind closed doors, actually 3, including the one that didn't get married, are still together. So 50% of the couples are still together 2 years later, which statistically, if you look at all these other random BS reality TV dating shows, is not the norm. And it really forced people to get to know each other. So is there something about the connection that you realize, even with Kenny, or just what you've seen and talked to the other castmates? What was it about not actually meeting the person that caused such a connection?
Yeah, I mean, obviously just getting to know them before having that physical connection. I mean, I would say like when they, you know, when it was the reveal and we actually did get to see our person, I was attracted to Kenny, but I wasn't like, oh shit, like man of my dreams, you know. But I had such a strong personality, emotional connection with Kenny just over that first week of us talking to each other behind a wall. I was there for the connection, and I wanted the guys to be just as vulnerable as me. And that's what happened. I mean, the guys that I connected the most with were the ones that were crying behind the wall, you know, being vulnerable with me, sharing their vulnerable stories. And I was like, yes, I'm here for it, because that's like what I wanted. Like, I'm a very vulnerable person, so I would hope that my significant other can be open and vulnerable with me too. And that's like what I was attracting in a sense. So it was neat to, you know, they felt comfortable with me and they felt safe. And at the same time, I felt that way with them. And I think that that is like key for a relationship as well, is that safety factor.
So because, you know, people watch the show and watch what we're doing, and we're trying to take morsels of goodness on how to change internally mindset. And we'll get into your mindset coaching as well, and the mindset coach towards you. That experience with being behind a wall, translating that into the real world, say people are having trouble with their current dating experience. What lessons did you learn? I mean, I believe as though you're single now, but you're back in the, you know, the dating world and whatever that might be. What lessons did you learn on how to communicate that made you a better and stronger person and potentially future partner to somebody?
Yeah, listening. I mean, that's all that you really could do when you were behind the wall. You couldn't see them. So you weren't distracted, obviously, by anyone, because you were the only person in the room. But you also weren't distracted by their body language, or, you know, if they had crooked teeth or whatever. Like, you were simply literally focused on their voice. So it improved my communication skill, which the best communication skill is your active listening. So it has definitely improved that. And granted, I'm human. I make mistakes mistakes and I don't listen sometimes. And I have realized over the last year and a half where that has popped up for me. And I'm like, ooh, I can work on that. You know, you know, it's a growth opportunity for me at that point.
No technology, no you know, all these different, no cell phones. No, I think the thing that's interesting is we continue to pass up significant others in our lives because we don't give fair chances. And especially on most dating shows, talking about no fair chances, like I can't watch the other ones because it's like, really, like you're dating her tonight, tomorrow, and then you're seeing each other and you're intimate and then back and forth. Whereas this was, I think the thing that I learned from it, and I'm in a relationship now, but the difference of part of what made this relationship work is focus on the other person, like being able to barrel focus and say, if you like somebody and you want to give them a real chance, put that down, focus on that human being. And then you also get to a point, I'm sure, did you have any experiences with other guys that you guys were having discussions with, or like, oh, I like him, but then it easily kind of naturally separated itself?
Yeah. There were a couple of guys, you know, towards the end that I was still creating a connection with, but my connection, like the chemistry was just stronger with Kenny altogether. There were probably two other guys that I could have gone with as well. It's just, like I said, the chemistry itself was just stronger with Kenny. I felt just even more at home. I don't know. There was something, and I don't even know how to describe it, but there was just something that was different. You know, like almost like a sexual chemistry, although we had never seen each other physically. Like I felt just a stronger pull towards him than the other two guys. But I will say this too, backing up to your last question, something that I did recognize also was when I use dating apps, you know, especially like, let's say, I guess both Bumble and Hinge, those are like the two that I have used over the last year and a half. And, you know, just because like you can look at the profile and they'll have, it's not just pictures, you know, they have like text or they can be comical or whatever. And I did find myself engaging more with that, focusing more on their responses to things, because obviously that shows their personality, versus just looking at the picture, you know, like, oh, yes or no, I'm not attractive. Like I could have someone that maybe I wasn't completely physically attracted to, but I loved some of their responses, and I would still like swipe right or throw up the like or whatever, or give them a comment about something. And I mean, there were a couple of guys, like I would do that and I would find myself, like, I would just be completely honest with them and just say, oh, I just like really loved your response. I had to tell you that. Not like, hey, yeah, I actually am like attracted to you. I don't know. Like, I'm just, again, my communication just radically improved. But yeah, it did allow me to want to get to know the person, because I feel like physical looks can either improve or decrease. Like they can increase or decrease. Like, if you start dating someone and they are, you know, just a beautiful model looking guy, but they have the worst personality, like that personality is really going to make them not look good either after a while. Or after a first date.
So, all right. So let's go to the show. You went to you were on the show. How many months did that take?
To film it?
Yeah, altogether.
Almost 2 months. Almost 2 months.
It's a lot of content in 2 months. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, there was like they didn't show this, but we all had like dance lessons and like going to get like to do like cake tasting. And that was probably one of the most fun filmings. I don't know, however I'm saying that. It was just so fun. Like we had a dance party. We all like did a dance line, and I did the worm, and they did not show that on international television. I'm so sad.
That's my move. That's my go-to. Now, when you do the worm, do you go forward or do you go backwards?
I go backwards. Yeah.
I'm a backwards wormer too. Yeah. I like finding the forward wormers because then we can cross.
Ooh, yeah. I don't know how. I have tried to learn how to do it forward. I don't know how to do it forward. It's
painful. You have to like hit more. It's the back way. It's like all upper body control, and it's safer. I have fractured a toe doing the worm one time. Funny story, total tangent. I was much younger. I spelled a word correctly on the National Spelling Bee, and I was being a goofball when I was like 20 something, and my mom and I were watching. Did the worm, smashed the toe, out of commission for a couple weeks. It
Oh
was a
no.
spelling bee incident.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, now I wonder why my girlfriend calls me a nerd. Okay, so you get done with reality TV, and then you're back to the real world, and you're no clients. What do? You've had this probably crazy experience, and you got a life coach. And where did it go from there?
Yeah. So she was technically like a business and mindset coach. And I was like, okay, if anything, since my mind just feels like mush, I need to go all in on my business. I need to really focus on growing my business and building my business. And I joke with her and I'm like, yeah, you did more for my mind than you did my business back then. Which is a wonderful thing because a lot of us, we just want money or we want the quick fix and like weight loss and like all this stuff. And radical thing about the mindset piece is like we are slowly, like it does have its return on investment, and I started seeing that within like the first week of working with this woman. But the business stuff kind of came later. However, it really was like a therapy session, like I said, and I recognized during that, like, I have to do this with my clients. Like, I don't want to talk about macros and food and nutrition with them anymore. I want to dive deep and understand, like, help them understand why they're doing the things that they're doing, why they're keeping themselves stuck, why they're not. And I start like literally transition my whole like idea of my business. I was like, I want to do this mindset and business coaching too. Cause I had a lot of like, I guess I had worked with another coach, but more in the group coaching session or group coaching way, about learning about business and marketing and strategy and that kind of thing, and launching digital courses and whatnot. So I was like, I just had to pivot. Like I just wanted to change everything and just dive deep with people. And because there's so much that keeps us stuck, it's stuck in our relationships. We're not honoring boundaries. We don't even know what our boundaries are because we have no awareness around it. In our career, in our business, like what is keeping us stuck from showing up online, from doing Instagram lives, from creating videos? Okay, you this, but you're not doing it. Why aren't you doing it? It's because your mom and dad told you weren't enough. They told you whatever when you were growing up, or shush, like your opinions don't matter. Literally little things like that can create the most inferior complex for someone. So I was like, I just have to do this. I want to like unleash people. I want them to connect back to their self. I had, like I said, my whole 2018, I had started the whole like personal development journey. So I started to connect to myself. I went years saying that I was a very spiritual person when I didn't even really understand what spirituality meant. I just was like, I just knew I wasn't really religious. I was like, no, I mean, I believe there's God, but I don't know. I didn't understand anything. So I just kept saying that. And then as I started to tune inward, like everything started to change. I mean, I could see beauty in everything. Like I'm just mesmerized when I like look at a tree blowing in the wind. I'm like, wow, that's so fascinating. Whereas before I may have been completely like just numb to it, or I wouldn't have seen it, and right. Now I feel like I see everything and everyone. I see them for their beauty. I see the beauty that's inside of them before they can even see the beauty inside themselves. And, that's how I grew in spirituality. So I just like I said, I just love helping people reconnect back to themselves by letting go of all the shit that's holding them down and keeping them stuck. And as they do that, flourish in their relationships, in their business will grow. Maybe if they don't have a business and they're in a career, they're going to like flourish in their career. But I tend to work more with female entrepreneurs just because they're kind of like at this level of, desiring more already because they have started a business of some sort. So yeah, that's kind of how it evolved. And I love it. I love talking about it. I love learning more about the subconscious mind. And I mean, I'm constantly studying myself because I always want to be learning and I always want to be providing more value to my clients too. So like with the people watching and and what you've explained about your life, you went from essentially 9 to 5 with the side hustle, and then took the side hustle, made it your full time, but still not fully in tune with exactly your message. You were building it as you go. And then all of a sudden you had this life experience and then you came back stronger, which I think is interesting because I think the way that you were talking about it, almost as though you were starting to get burnt out. Yeah.
And then you shifted because that's your lowest point often bounces back. And that if you can hit that lowest point in that moment and you can find what got you there, you then can break through. And you have this philosophy on burnout to breakthrough. Can you tell me a little bit more about how exactly that related to your own life and how you can relate it to the people that you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So like all of us experience burnout. And to go kind of like into that the woo-woo side of things, we have this like, we live in a culture where it's a very masculine dominated society. We are programmed to do. You have to work hard to be successful. You have to work hard to make more money. And it's constantly about working hard. And, I remember even like having conversations, with friends, like, oh gosh, yeah, I like stayed up till like 3 a.m. working on this thing, or I stayed up this, or, oh my gosh, yeah, I had to work 14 hours. It's like a competition. And it's like, but it's not like, you're literally like, that's your health is on the line at this point. Right. Okay. But we don't even like think that into like, we don't even have that realm of consciousness. Like, we're just like, oh yeah, it's just the way it is. Well, no, it's not the way it is. Like, there are so many people, and I can be proof of this, where I have made more from 1 hour of coaching than I have in, working a 40-hour work week. So it's like, no. But yeah, we are just so we are so programmed into this going, doing. And it doesn't just show up in our work, like in our business and our career. It shows up in our relationships. Like when, let's say you're dating someone or your husband even, or vice versa, they start to pull away, or they're not as vulnerable. They're not communicating with you. One partner tends to sometimes, instead of just like backing up, giving that person their space, you're like, well, what's wrong? What's going on? What did I do? What did I do wrong? And it's like, that's that masculine energy coming back because you're like trying to fix something that you have no control over. So it's taking the time to step back into the feminine, just allow that person to kind of marinate and do its thing, process his thoughts, feelings, and emotions. You do the same, work on you. And when that person is ready to come talk to you, or when it's a different environment, when it's not so heated, you can have a much thorough and productive and progressive conversation with someone. So
what if Kelly, I give space. Because I'm a little bit of a pusher. Like, what can I do? What can I do to help? How can I do this? And there's times where I've been like, you know what, I'm gonna let this play out. And then I get yelled at as a dude being like, oh, you just didn't even care. You weren't even wondering what was going on in my life. How do I play that delicate balance? Take me inside the female psyche on that one.
Yes. Yeah. I will say this. I feel, and because of my own experience, I feel like guys, and I could be totally wrong to anyone listening, but I feel like guys actually do process things different than women. Through my experience, I feel like the guy is normally the one that is like, no, like literally let me just process this. Like, back up, I'll tell you about it later kind of thing. Whereas women, we might be like, back up, I'll talk about it later, or get out of my face right now. But we really don't want that. We're confusing as shit. We're like, that's why you guys have the, that's why you guys call us crazy all the time. Cause we're like, we say one thing, but we mean something else. No, we want to be cared for and nurtured. Yeah, we don't want you to go a week without bringing it up. But yeah, if it's like, if you don't feel like having the conversation with your significant other is going to be productive in that moment because she's just really heated and she's all up in her emotions and everything, and she might actually like hurt you because she's so emotional, maybe it is good to just give her some space at that moment. But then a couple hours later, be like, okay, like, are you ready to talk about that now? Because I want to know how I can help you, how I can support this. Or just as you're in that relationship, communicate what are your mechanisms when you're when you're feeling triggered, or when you're in an argument, or when you're having, what are your mechanisms when you're having a bad day, or when she's having a bad day? Like, go ahead and communicate that so you know how to show up for each other when it does happen. I think it's a balance. It's a balance of both. And if the relationship is worth it, you figure out the points. You give space to each person is different. There is no master key to a woman.
certainly no master key. Not even close. Same with the guys. Guys are difficult in other ways. But what I've learned dating way too many people in my life is every person communicates differently, and the more you build in that, if you improve, this is the key that I've seen. If you improve that communication each time and how to deal with those tough instances, that's the person you're staying with. Well, if each time the fight gets worse and you try and each person's trying and they're separating, no matter how great the sex might be or whatever, it's not the right person because you're not able to process each other's emotions. So that's my 2 cents. I thought that was a funny tangent. Had to go that way.
Yeah.
So again, we're on the whole topic of breaking through and just that stress behind it and moving forward. I don't know if we got to the answer. What was the end game? I don't know how we started talking about how to talk to a woman. That's a whole 8-hour conversation.
I know.
So in your own life, how did you start progressing forward to kind of that's right. That's what it was. How did you start showing the women you were working with how to break through? What was the key element that has ignited that fire?
Yeah. Okay. So, and for everyone listening, this is a great exercise for you to do, is to ask yourself, it's the be, do, have method. So who do I want to be? What do I want to become? Literally journal this out. Who do I want to be? What do I want to become? And then what do I need to do? So what inspired actions do I take in order to become her or him? And then what do I want to have? What are my desires? What are my goals in life? So then you reframe it. As I do the things to become her or him, then I'll have what I desire. So what happens is what burnout is because, why we get into burnout is because we're actually resisting the things that we desire. We're doing something that's counterproductive to what's going on, to what we want, right? Or to who we want to be. Case in point. I won't go into a long story with this, but because of the coaches, the mentorships that I had invested in when I didn't have money to invest in coaches because I was out of work and I was living paycheck to paycheck, but money is all around us. There's abundance of it. Anyways, I put it all on a credit card. I got into debt, right? So I then went and got another 9-to-5 job. So 2019 to literally 5 weeks ago, I was working a 9-to-5 job. I had a lot of resistance to doing that because I was like, oh, my business, everyone's going to think my business failed because I have to go back and get a 9-to-5 job. And no one thought that. That was just me in my head. However, then the show aired, I was just radically going and going and going and going. I wanted to be doing coaching full time. I wasn't really making the income just yet for the coaching business. So it was just this battle going on between my 9-to-5 as well as my coaching business. What made me have the breakthrough though, leave my 9-to-5 5 weeks ago, was realigning myself to that be, do, have. I want to be this, so I have to do this because I want to have this. Well, working this 9-to-5 and working 40 hours a week and then exhausting myself in the evenings trying to do all the other things or on the weekends, that's not in alignment. And so there's the word alignment. If you're not in alignment, you are going to be in burnout. Period. End of the story. If you're not in alignment with the person you're dating, if you're not in alignment with your business, you're not in alignment with your career, if you're not in alignment with your feelings, thoughts, and actions, burnout is going to come. So it's massively trusting. There goes that spirituality again. It's massively trusting and surrendering to source that you are going to be supported. But if you, let's just say you took this leap of faith and you left your 9-to-5, but you didn't have the trust that the universe was going to support you and that you weren't going to you didn't even know how to take the inspired actions, you're probably going to find yourself you might find yourself in a hole, in a little bit of a shitstorm. Yeah. So where I transitioned was I had such radical faith that I am so fully supported. I am all in on my coaching business. I am doing podcasts. I'm meeting different people. There's no way that I am going to fail. And the universe is not going to let me. I will find a way to make all the things work, but I can't keep doing this. And that was my breakthrough. I was I have to step into alignment with who I am becoming, because otherwise it's just going to create more anxiety and stress and depression and shit.
Were you able to get out of the debt? Because I think you've managed to get into about $30,000 of debt trying to build yourself. And a lot of I've spent even more than that on different elements and different coaching and different things.
Yeah.
And it starts to stack up and you're like, I'm learning, I'm getting this, but it's like, then you have to act. And then you also realize when I have to act, you're also in debt.
Yeah.
In your situation. So have you gotten to the point where you're pretty close to pay that off, or are you still working on it?
Yeah, no. So, I paid it off last June, actually. Oh. So it's almost been a year that I paid it off. So in less than 2 years, I was able to pay off $30,000 of debt. And I totally wholeheartedly attribute it to aligned action. 1, 2 is like understanding my money stories, like that. Yeah, I grew up how probably 95% of the world did. You know, we can't afford that. That's too expensive. Money doesn't grow on trees. I grew up listening and hearing that my whole entire life. And as I started to understand, like, that's not true for everyone, you know, that some people do have money. Like, there are just so many, it's stories, it's lies, you know, it's how people were programmed into thinking about money and their relationship. And that could be their relationship with money, but that doesn't have to be my relationship with money. So I started just changing my relationship with money. I have money dates. I have it literally on my calendar every the 15th and 30th of every month. I have a money date on my calendar, and I go into my bank account and I send gratitude and love to literally everything that's gone in, or everything that's come in and everything that's gone out. Because it's all supporting me and who I am and who I am becoming. And I write out money mantras every single day. And I've done it since 2018. More so radically over the last couple of months. I write it literally like 50 times to 100 times a day, these money mantras now, because it's constant repetition. So think about this. When you were young and you were learning the ABCs and your colors and your numbers, your parents didn't just flash a flashcard in front of your face one time. It was constant repetition. So there's nothing different. So it's constant repetition now. It's like, happens.
So I got a question from the audience. Before we get there, when it comes to the last 5 weeks, what have you noticed now that you have taken the leap and you've now left the 9 to 5? You've put yourself in position. I think the key behind that, and in my business coaching, whenever I've talked to people, it's like, focus on what you got to do. But if you need to survive, then you just need to work that regular job until you can make the leap that you did. Like, don't be silly. Don't think that like the secret doesn't work in a vacuum. Like that whole money, you know, it's not like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm thinking about money, it's just going to come. It's like, you still also have to do the shit. Yeah. You still have to. So you made the leap 5 weeks ago. What has changed, or what have you noticed in your own life?
I definitely have noticed that I have like all the mindset and like the feminine and masculine energy, just all the concepts that I have learned, I've been integrating them, but watching myself actually use them in the last 5 weeks to have that stronger faith about things. That has been something. I mean, it's kind of spiritual and woo-woo, but I literally have just like put so much faith out there that new opportunities have come in. I mean, there've been things even, you know, just throughout the day that I wasn't able to do because I was working my job. So it's like now there's more opportunities. One big door closed, another opportunity came in. And, you know, for anyone who like fears taking a leap just to even transition to a new career, like if it's going to serve you better, just take that leap. Like it's going to bring you another opportunity for sure. And that may be like faster growth in your company or something. Like there's always going to be an opportunity for growth or an opportunity to learn a lesson too.
I like, there's a term I've tried to figure out. Like, I want to call it like intelligent leaping. Cause a lot of times like somebody that's over the top is like, you know what, if you feel like you should do it, just do it. And I'm like, yeah, but there's a little but there. Like, you have to actually analyze it and also be willing to fail. As you just said, you're going to learn. If you make a mistake, you're going to learn from it. The one mistake that that's harder to get over is when you didn't think it through, even without any of the life mistakes and experience and failures and lessons you had. If you're just like, yeah, screw it, I'm in. And it's like, oh, well, might not have been the right time. And if it succeeds, you're 1 in 1,000. Like that's a lucky thing. But whereas the rest of the time, if you can make an educated leap, that's probably what I said. A more educated leap is the way to do it. Okay. Yeah. I like this question, and I'm a little curious because I'd love you to get a little bit more open, vulnerable in terms of what your biggest obstacle you've gone through in life. What would that be?
Yeah, I'd probably say I did experience like a sexual trauma in college. That really created a lot of obstacles throughout my life that I just didn't even know were happening. But it was a very like traumatic experience for me. So that would be my biggest obstacle. How I obviously learned through, like worked through that. I mean, I stuffed it down for 12 years. I went through one therapy session and the woman spoke down to me, or that's how I perceived it to be, as before.
Yeah.
You know, it was, I perceived it maybe that she was talking down to me, and I was like, nope, I'm good. I'm healed. I don't want to go back to therapy. I'm totally fine. But you know, now I feel like that's another part of my story, or that's a huge part of my story, is helping women realize that maybe the reason why they've disconnected is because a possible similar situation happened in their life, and they just have been going and going and going, not really processing that. But I would say that alone really affected so many areas. Shame, guilt, feeling of unworthiness, in both. I mean, I never asked for a raise I worked at a corporate job for 8 years, or almost 8 years, never asked for a raise. I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, fine. Like, you can pay me the 0.2% increase every year. That's fine. I just kept like succumbing to just what it was thrown at me, more or less. And I was like, oh, okay, like just settling. And again, I was just like super unfulfilled. And that's when those messages from the app started coming in, like, you're changing my life. I was like, no one's ever told me that before. Like, what? And it's like they exposed me to my light that I had within that I didn't know I had. And then I was like,
so that's the timing where you started overcoming what you had gone through 12 years before. It was the trigger of seeing other people appreciate what you were doing for them, and then wanting to do it for yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Yeah. You and I talked on your podcast was that yesterday, 2 days ago? We talked about the key, one of the main keys with overcoming trauma and overcoming our past is being ready to actually overcome it, being ready to let go and learn from it. And like you said, in retrospect, the therapist might have been talking down. You might have been a terrible therapist, who knows? But maybe at that point in your life, you needed that badge still. You needed that horrible experience, and you weren't ready to let go of it. So anybody said didn't sound right. And again, he or she could have been terrible. Don't know.
Yeah.
But ultimately, and this is an important message that I see when people start talking about their traumas, and even the show we had last night on Truth Will Set You Free. If you're not willing, everybody's been through trauma, and there's different levels, and people shouldn't level trauma. Because it's part of everybody's story. But the people that it's very hard to understand when you're ready to get rid of that trauma. But when you're ready, it's up to you. It's not necessarily up to a therapist. It's great to go to a life coach, great to go to a therapist, mindset coach, all the above. But there is no magic pill of anybody that you're going to buy, that pay for and come and talk spirit into your life. It still starts here, period.
Yeah.
And it was something that was a fire within you that allowed you to start moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, it does start with you, because I could sit here all day and question my clients, knowing, maybe they've been like, oh yeah, I had a sexual trauma, but for me to get to like the details of it, I could sit here and they can tell me as little or as much as they want to. But if you're not being truthful with yourself and how you really feel about a situation, you're not going to really heal from it. You're not going to process it completely and fully either. So you got to be real with yourself.
What did it feel like when you finally let go of that baggage, that trauma?
A weight was lifted. I'm not going to say that I'm perfectly healed from it. I think it was so deeply rooted, but I have had so much forgiveness, not just for myself, but, or not so much for both of us. Like I have forgiven the person, I've forgiven myself, and I've also forgiven myself for harboring any negative emotions towards that person. Cause obviously, like, what our situation was. It kind of takes two to tango. And, you know, I allowed some things to happen and cried wolf and blah, 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 and whatever. But it was still very traumatic for me what did occur. And, you know, like I said, I don't, you know, I'm not saying I'm like grateful that it happened. I don't wish that upon anyone, but I'm grateful now that I had to go through something like that so that I could help, like I said, help connect other people back to themselves, because it really destroyed me for a long time.
I like this question. What skills, and I think we just covered one of them in terms of experience, life experience, that obviously you can incorporate into what you do in your coaching. What skills or experience have you gained outside of your coaching that you integrate with your practice?
Yeah, I do breath work with, not like super intense, but I do like a 4 square breath work method. So like inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4, exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold it for 4. And I just do that repetitively. I will do affirmations with my clients, like get them to a place of being silent. Like, because again, we're constantly, a lot of us are in that go, 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 do, do, do. And yes, you might be on a call with me, still may not be like fully present and aware of what's going on. You might just be like, okay, how can she help me? Like, what's going on? Like, let's get through this. Let's work it out, you know? And so if I can help them just kind of get more grounded and center and like tap into their emotions and like what they're actually feeling, a lot of times doing those things, my clients will start to cry. They get really emotional because they haven't allowed themselves to feel. They haven't allowed themselves to be emotional. And to have that release is such a powerful healing technique. So that's definitely 2 things that I integrate with my clients.
And yeah, that's one question out of all the times we've talked. What exactly, because everybody's got their niche, and how do you consider your coaching? I know that you do physical coaching as well. What is your niche per se?
Yeah. I would say like the burnt out female entrepreneur is my niche. You know, I'd say like mastering their self-worth. Basically, I help them overcome the burnout and master their self-worth. But yeah. But
do you still ever do any of the health coaching?
Well, a little bit. I might ask them like on the call, you know, how is your health? Like, how do you feel about yourself? Like, what are you eating? Are you eating enough food? Are you constantly like bypassing eating because you're so busy throughout the day?
Fast food or whatever it might be, putting chemicals and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So yes, I will touch on it, but I don't like coach on it. Let's put it that way. But I do. It's a part of our health. I mean, our physical health, our emotional health, our mental health, everything is health. So we'll touch on it.
That's my girlfriend. Burnt out female entrepreneur. Guilty. And Kelly. She's the 2 Kellys.
I love it.
So we're pretty close to wrapping up. I want to talk a little bit about, there's a couple questions about marriage up top and relationships. And I think you have an interesting way of looking at relationships and dating, and what as you're back into the dating world after the show, after your ex relationships and all of this. And I think you even dated somebody after the show was over, which was one of your close friends, I believe. What have you learned about relationships that you pass on even in your coaching business?
Yeah. Boundaries. Really defining what those boundaries look like. That was something I had not done myself. And I think that is a part of the reason why the last relationship may not have panned out, because I was not in my boundaries. I was allowing myself to be available whenever he was, and just kind of like succumbing to that. And what happens when we don't honor first of all, when you don't know what your boundaries are and what you even want in a relationship, we got to get clear on those. But 2, when you're not honoring your boundaries, that's when you start to get resentful towards your partner. And that resentment causes a lot of shit, you know? So yeah, I mean, I just teach my clients like, hey, like, well, let's figure out what those boundaries are so that we don't. So when you are going into that next relationship, or even if you're currently in a relationship, but you don't know what your boundaries are, we just don't know what those boundaries are. So get those clear, defined boundaries. And so when something happens, you have the awareness. You're like, oh, wait, this is actually triggering this boundary. What can I do? And I give them the tools to move through what that looks like. How can you, you know, be more in your power? Especially as, you know, as females, like, how can you be more in your power? Like, my biggest thing is like, focus on you. And it's not a selfish thing. It is like, you can't control anyone else's behaviors. You can't control what anyone else says or does or thinks or whatever, but you can only control you. So knowing your boundaries and knowing how you deserve to be treated in a relationship and how you want to show up in a relationship is extremely powerful thing. So if you want to show up a certain way in a relationship, but because your significant other is acting a certain way and it's triggering you to then act out of alignment with that, how you want to show up, then again, it comes down to that burnout and all that stuff too. Like you can be burnt out in a relationship as well. So it's really, really being strong and sturdy about your boundaries, and knowing what that relationship, and obviously communicating effectively as well. So yeah, like I will not waver in my boundaries ever again. Ever.
So you also have another thing that you mentioned, filling your cup versus filling a void. I like that phrase. What exactly do you mean by it?
Yeah. So a lot of times, like I said, a lot of us like bypass our emotions, and we may tend to, okay, let's just say you are single, right? You're single and you are filling the void by going on dates or having emotionless sex, although girls get really emotionally connected. So that's hogwash, I think, most of the time. But it's just like, or going out drinking with your friends when you know that you're just drinking because you're trying to like numb the pain kind of thing. So that's obviously voiding. Filling up your own cup. Okay, what can I do today that is actually going to make me feel really good? Is that journaling? Is it meditating? Is it going for a bike ride? Is it going for a walk? Is it nature? Is it going to swing on a swing set? Like, who knows? Is it calling a friend? Do the things that are non-alcohol or drug related or sex related that are going to actually fill you up. A lot of times it's actually like your childlike self. What is 8-year-old Kelly used to do? What did 8-year-old Anthony used to do? Did you make mud pies? Then go find some dirt outside and go make a mud pie and just connect back to yourself, and it's connecting to yourself versus getting it out. And a lot of times too, we void out our emotions. You know, you may feel like crying or getting upset about something, and you're kind of like inner critic is like, stop crying, like don't cry, you don't need to cry, like toughen up, you know. And that emotion gets stuffed down into our emotional body, and it'll pop back up for us later at a later time. So feel the feels.
Feel the feels.
And
that helps, and not just in that. That's like every day. That helps with your everyday period, and especially relationships and dating, because it's allowing you to not sacrifice yourself. And it actually comes back a little bit about what you said with boundaries. You're creating an internal boundary by whether you wake up in the beginning of the day. This is what I heard you say. Like, this is my man's translation, whatever they call it. This is my mansplain to myself. So it's almost like you have all these things that you do during the day, and a lot of them are good in the moment. But if you, at the end of the night, when you're going to bed, if you don't feel better about yourself in that moment because of it, it's not one of the things that's filling your cup.
Right.
It's filling a void. Whereas if you do stuff that may not be like super fun, and like you said, if I go outside and play with mud, like it feels okay at the time, but at the end of the night, I'm going to bed, I'm like, today I just felt grounded and connected. That is filling your cup as opposed to filling your void. I think that's the way my brain took it.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So we're about to wrap it up. This is the part where we talk about what you are doing, and we've kind of covered it as we go. How the people you work with, some of the stuff that you do, and your goals for the future on creating change. Go ahead. It's funny because this is a show where we really already kind of covered what you do, but what is your goals? What is your goals from the future? How are you going to keep creating change?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I have a podcast, so continuing to have awesome guests. I probably will I want to start to interview, more like mindset experts, maybe therapists, whatever. and just like different experts in that realm to maybe teach about the science behind things, because I don't necessarily have the science backing on some of this stuff. But yeah, so the podcast, potentially like a talk show at some point. I would love to do that. I think I've always wanted to be like an Oprah or Ellen DeGeneres. But also, my whole podcast is about storytelling and people just being vulnerable with their stories and how they manage to triumph, that kind of thing. So if I can do that in a more like TV show space, visual, I think that would be awesome. Creating more programs. Like I have a lot of knowledge in the last 3.5 years, that I have I have invested not just money, but time and energy into masterclasses and webinars where I have just ingested and consumed so much information that I have so much to talk about, so much to help people with. And I can say, there are days like I'm like, dang it, I could have showed people how to like start an online business last year when the pandemic, came through. But I was just so burnt out in a lot of different ways that me giving my energy, I couldn't do anymore. But yeah, I just want to create more programs and courses for people to be able to go through and use me as a resource to connect with themselves, use me to connect with yourself, connect with me to connect with you.
The podcast is, do I have that right? Is it Chase, what is it? Chase Life with Kelly?
Chase Life with Kelly.
Okay, I got it right. Thanks. Like, I was only on it a couple days ago. Probably should know the name of it. Good job, Anthony.
Yeah.
So Chase Life with Kelly, that's where you look up the podcast. It's on all the different networks, Apple, Spotify, I'm sure, all the above. So that's where you find it. You've had some really cool guests on there. I know you've had, I know a lot of people liked my episode with Craig last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess that was. And you've had Craig on, you've had Caitlin Bristow on too, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'll be my final question. That's how we're going to end it. What has been your most, and you've only been doing the podcast not very long, what's been your favorite guest or guests?
Ooh, like the first one that came to Annalyn McCord. She's an actress. She was one of my most interesting favorite podcasts because she actually just came out this week that she identified with dissociative identity disorder. And she talked a lot about that and bipolar and a lot of like just mental health labels that were associated with her sexual trauma. She had a lot of shit happen to her when she was younger, and she just dove right into it, had no qualms about it. Like, she was extremely raw and very vulnerable, and like what that trauma led her to doing, like how she was behaving and how she was like showing up in relationships or with guys that she was dating. And it was just a very powerful and eye-opening episode. So yeah, another woman, actually her episode has not come out yet, but this woman lost her husband to ALS. And I bawled my eyes out on the podcast. I was like, I don't know if I'm not supposed to cry, but I can't not cry. Like, I was just like Tear City. But her just sharing the entire story of like how that even came to be, and just like her strength and vulnerability, because she's a mother of four boys. And it was just like radical, her strength through all that. And now like how she has been able to like, he's with her on her journey every step of the way still, although he's not physically here. Like, she just uses his spirit to walk her passion and live out their purpose in life. It was just so touching. But everyone has been amazing. Like, I've just gotten to know so many people. There was even a woman, I think there's a girl, Stephanie, that's going through the same program through Lauren.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had her on the podcast, and same thing. Just like learning about people's stories. We don't know. We're just so quick to be like, hey, how are you? That's good. It's so autopilot, and it's like, no, like, how are you? What's your story? I want to know more about you and like the challenges that you've gone through, and like, tell me everything. And it's, I just love that, because there's so much power in storytelling and so much connection that you can create. Like, so many people don't talk about their struggles, but because it's so like, oh, they won't understand, or I'm afraid how they'll think of me. And it's like, we're all shit, Yeah. So I just want people to feel like you're not alone. Like, we're all going through something, for sure.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you, not just today, but on your show and when we started talking. And I'm sure we'll stay in touch. And obviously, anything we could do to help each other's message and get people out there and help people, obviously. If anybody wants to find you, we talked about the podcast, but where can people find you if they want more information on you?
Yeah. So Instagram, it's Chase Life with Kelly. So yeah, Instagram, Chase Life with Kelly. I have a Facebook community for women. It's also Chase Life with Kelly. It's a Facebook group. And then chaselifetogether.com is my website.
chaselifetogether.com.
Yeah. Someone stole my Chase Life with Kelly domain.
Son of a biscuit. So IG, you said IG and Facebook are Chase Life with Kelly?
Yes.
At Chase Life with Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna throw that up on the screen. Do you have to go, or do you have like 1 minute to stay backstage real quick when I wrap it up?
Oh yeah, you're good. I'm good.
Stay there. Thank you so much, everybody at home. Do a little round of applause for Kelly. Thank you so much for being on, Kelly Chase. Thank you, guys. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is Changemakers for the week. We'll probably be back, I believe, in a couple weeks. A couple weeks. We got a Changemakers in 2 weeks with King Randall. Hope you guys will come around for that. Again, thank you guys for being on. For those of you that are Patreons, also thank you. The podcast, if you want to catch any of our previous shows, hashtag BetheChange.com/podcast. As I've said, that's for Changemakers. That's for Truth Will Set You Free, Make America Think Again, Questions Unraveled as well, which is I believe, I got to talk to Emily, but I believe we have a new episode this week. I'm going to get that thing down. There we go. So Questions Unraveled this Saturday. I will let you guys know more details as that comes out. And don't forget, the store is now open. So make sure you go to hashtag BetheChange.com. We've got fun t-shirts, risky t-shirts. We've got the What Made You Smile Today t-shirt. That is the one that so far, once we went live, the most amount of traction. Not surprised, because you guys love when I do What Made You Smile Today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Changemakers. Do something this week that changes your life, changes the world, change internally, change your kid's life, change your friend's life. Do something. Be kind to people. It's pretty simple. Thank you guys so much. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Take it easy.